ready? May 25th, 1946, the world was blessed with a faith-filled, courageous, resilient, and beautiful individual. From the very beginning, my grandmother, Claudine Blair Goins, has faced nothing but obstacles and tribulations in her life. She has successfully raised 3 boys, 8 grandchildren, and 4 great-grandchildren who continue to love and admire her still to this day. Before she got married, she was working for her family in tobacco fields. She had to drop out of the 11th grade just to help out. She, along with her 2 brothers and 4 sisters, were part of a less fortunate family. I remember her telling me that her mother, my great-grandmother, Bessie, made all of their clothes. This is how my grandma learned to sew. She would just sit and watch her mom until she eventually learned how to help her out. Being a part of a larger family, each child has responsibilities within the household. Lucky for me, my grandma got to do a lot of the cooking. She can cook just about anything you can think of. With her talents of sewing, cooking, and good looks, it was not hard for her to find a handsome young man. She met my grandfather, Fred Hawks, through mutual friends and immediately fell in love. Married at a very young age of only 17, my grandmother gave life to her first son, Ricky Dwayne Hawks. As a first-time mom with a husband who became a raging, violent alcoholic, she decided to go to work at a local mill. In November of 1972, she gave birth to her second son, Randy David Hawks. She continued to raise her 2 sons, even though her life began to drag her down. The farther in the marriage they got, the more abusive he became. She stood strong on her faith and kept her marriage going, and in 1974, she gave birth to her 3rd son, Rusty Dale Hawks. Raising 3 boys was not an easy task, but she supported them and provided them with everything that they needed. There was nothing she loved more than her 3 boys. After 18 years and 3 kids later, my grandma decided to divorce my grandpa. She made the decision that she was strong enough to handle life on her own for a while. She ended up becoming a manager of Pine State marketing, working night and day to provide the world to her 3 growing boys. This woman is selfless and does not let the constraints of life hold her down. This is one of the many reasons I admired her so much. Later on in life, my grandma ended up remarrying and was married for 5 years to this man. He was not the man who she thought he was. She did not let him get in the way of her life though, and instead she kept her head high and kept trucking on. During this time in her life, she also lost her job because Pine State went out of business. She went from a manager's job position making decent money to a job in Winston making half the salary she once was. But she never complained about her life to anyone, and she knew she just had to do what she had to. She was a strong mother and a good role model. Once her life started coming back together little by little, she remarried again. They were not married long before he passed away from an unexpected heart attack. This affected my grandmother, and it took her a long period of time to balance back to her strong well-being. She finally retired in 1998, and after retiring, she decided to do a little bit of traveling. She has took bus tour trips to New York, Pennsylvania, Niagara Falls, and many more places. She has also been on several cruises, but her favorite was to the Bahamas. After all her traveling, she decided at an older age that she wanted to go back to school to earn her certified nursing assistant license. She breezed through this class and immediately started sitting with an older woman who was in bad health. On the side of her CNA duties, she volunteered to run a clothes closet from her church fellowship hall. This was for families who could not afford clothing and for our community's homeless who had nothing to wear. She also, in addition to my aunt, helped start a shelter for battered women and troubled women and their children. Through church is where my grandma met the love of her life, Tom Goins. She and Tom have spent the last 14 wonderful years together and continue to be an example of a godly relationship. Tom also has a son and 2 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren who my grandma accepts as her own. My grandma is the definition of a godly woman. I hope that I can become half the woman that she is one day. She is so full of courage and passion that she continues to be a role model for everyone around her. It was not until 3 years ago that I heard my grandma speak out for the very first time about being abused. This was also the first time I have ever seen her so vulnerable. We were at a conference for battered women, and my grandma had the honor of being the guest speaker. I could not believe what I was hearing when she began to speak. My grandma, full of faith, patience, and love, was abused over and over. She said there's nothing about her life that is extraordinary or outstanding, but that she is very thankful to God that He brought her from how she started her adult life to who she is today. For without Him, I am nothing. Done.